The van's bonnet stays up in the rain. Your mate offers a hand, but you say you're sorted. You're already reaching for a tool you know won't fix it. You do this because small signals taught you that an ordinary moment can change before anyone admits it. You claim it's only a loose connection, nothing serious. Your grin grows broader even as your stomach drops. While his attention stays fixed on you beside the curb, your voice performs ease as your body prepares for consequences nobody has mentioned. As cold water runs from your cuff into your palm, that ordinary detail suddenly carries far too much information. You're no longer simply standing in the physical room. You are measuring what can be said, what must be hidden, and how quickly control might slip. Your jaw tightens, your breath becomes shallow, and your face burns. Despite the weather, the reaction stays almost invisible because showing alarm would create another problem on top of the one already unfolding. The fear never gains a visible shape. You lean farther into the engine, swear lightly, and pretend the problem is nearly solved. Continuing the practical task feels more manageable than admitting what the moment has touched. Usefulness gives your hands something to do while the rest of you tries not to react. Afterwards, in private, you replay whether accepting help would have made you look incapable. You check the exact wording, the pause before the reply, and whether a different version of you could have kept everything steadier without needing anything from anybody else. Blame feels tidier than helplessness. By 11:30, the review has become harsher. By 1 in the morning, you have turned uncertainty into evidence against yourself. It feels as though perfect timing or one more useful sentence could have rewritten another person's limits long after the house has gone quiet. You defend their side, prosecute your own, and end up carrying both arguments. The only person never placed under proper examination is the one whose behavior made the whole calculation necessary in the first place. The real responsibility remains somewhere else entirely. You may understand the facts perfectly well, yet the reflex still arrives before understanding does. It treats being seen in need by another man as a practical emergency rather than an ordinary human moment that could be allowed to exist. Support feels like exposure. A small present-day exchange lands somewhere older than the room, leaving you with a reaction that seems excessive until the history underneath it begins to come into view. At work, you take another shift rather than tell the supervisor that money and sleep are both becoming tight. You're checking whether being easy, useful, or less visible will stop the atmosphere changing around everyone. In relationships, you answer a worried partner with practical updates instead of voicing the fear beneath them. Another person's disappointment can feel like a test you must pass quickly before affection becomes uncertain or expensive. Your own need waits outside the conversation. Alone at home, you search symptoms, debts, or forms. This happens after everyone has gone to bed. The quiet does not immediately register as rest. It feels like an interval in which you have forgotten an obligation that nobody else can see. Socially, you make the hardest week sound funny in the pub, so nobody's face has to change. You deploy humor and competence to stay connected, without exposing the part of you that expects closeness to create work, judgment, or a debt you cannot easily repay. This requires constant calculation. Who has already got problems, whether you have earned the right to complain, and what help might cost you in pride. Your own first reaction is edited down before you have decided whether it was reasonable or simply human. You delete the honest sentence and replace it with a joke, a shrug, or the phrase, "I'll sort it." People know your usefulness better than your inner life because you have been giving them the safer version for years. You are called solid, low maintenance, or stubborn as anything. These labels keep an adaptation looking like identity, which means nobody has to ask what trained it. Spending 40 minutes refusing the 10-minute lift that would solve the problem is a precise measure of the effort it takes to make your private strain look like the easiest thing happening in the room. The role leaves you knackered, but stepping out of it can feel worse. Exhaustion is familiar, while receiving help or being visibly unsure asks you to tolerate a kind of exposure you have never practiced. Familiar strain seems safer than care. By midlife, this becomes the version of you other people plan around. The bloke who carries furniture, covers shifts, and never becomes a burden. A protective method hardens into a reputation everyone appreciates, but very few people think to question. The pattern begins in a home where money was tight, adults were tired, and dignity depended on managing without public fuss. Needing less felt like the safest available contribution. Those adults were working long hours, wary of authorities or judged whenever they appeared dependent. The child noticed that comfort was unreliable or likely to make the room more crowded. So, self-containment began as a practical response. The child adapted by keeping complaints brief, reading the room, and learning useful jobs early. This earned a little predictability and reduced friction, even if it left fear or need with nowhere public to go. The method was rewarded. Men called him tough. Women called him no trouble. Every solved problem earned more respect than any spoken fear, confirming that the quiet, capable version was the one most welcome. This repeated reward makes the lesson automatic. Competence protects status, while asking for help risks the old humiliation of being told there is nothing spare. The adjustment starts operating before the adult has checked whether the old conditions still exist. This pattern is often described as hyper-independence. Relying only on yourself becomes a protective rule because dependence once felt unsafe or costly. Solving the problem alone protects dignity quickly, while asking another person introduces uncertainty and the possibility of being refused. This habit stays with you like a heavy metal toolbox, carried after years in houses where nobody else brought one. The weight makes every trip harder. The tools inside were still calibrated through real experience. That setting activates when the car fails, the bills stack up, or health changes. The present moment gets interpreted through a rule written years ago, before the adult part of you has considered what is actually being offered. The present may say help can be shared, but the older lesson says a man who needs too much risks becoming an unaffordable burden. The older lesson speaks first because it has been rehearsed for longer. Protecting your dignity when resources and sympathy felt limited was a necessary survival skill. The reliability everyone respects was built by a boy who learned that being helped might cost more than quietly carrying the load himself.